Medical Intuitive Insights with your host, Dr. Gloria Warren, is a program that presents topics on medical intuition, holistic opportunities outside of mainstream society, and scientific research as applied today. Topics range from online intuitive readings to interviews unveiling alternative healing modalities and discussing them with inspirational leaders. Dr. Warren is the bridge within holistic arts while stressing the balance between the spiritual and physical self. So now, please welcome the host of Medical Intuitive Insights, Dr. Gloria Warren.
What if memory fades, but love never does? When words are forgotten, can the heart still speak? What remains when memories fade, the pain or the love? Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to Medical Intuitive Insights. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria C. Warren, here to explore the sacred meeting place between medicine, intuition, and human spirit. Today's episode is titled Alzheimer's Disease, Love Beyond Memory. What actually is Alzheimer's disease, and how does it affect the mind and body? What are the early signs, contributing factors, and current approaches to treatment or prevention? Once a diagnosis is made, what can families expect? And how can caregivers navigate this journey with strength and compassion? One thing is for sure, it is a journey through one's life's most confusing experiences. More than a medical condition, it's a transformation of connection, identity, and love. Because even when memories fade, the heart still remembers. Alzheimer's is a progressive neurological disorder that gradually impairs memory, thinking, and daily function. In scientific terms, it's linked to amyloid plaques and tau tangles in the brain, structures that block communication between nerve cells and neurons. But in spiritual terms, it may be something much, much more. A gentle turning inward, as if the soul is beginning its reflection before journeying home. While science studies neurons and healers observes their energy, how light dims in one space, yet brightens in another. So what are the signs, the early signs especially, of Alzheimer's? They could be very subtle, repeating questions, forgetting names or familiar faces, feeling disoriented in places once familiar, known to the heart. There may be changes in mood, frustration, confusion, or sudden tears. But remember, what we're seeing is not the person disappearing. It's the brain struggling to keep up with what the heart already knows. Joining me here today is Nurse Peggy, and she's going to be adding to our exploration here and discussing more of what's going on. Just remember, your voice matters, so we are inviting you for any live questions, insights, and comments throughout the episode, because here you are the star of our show. We are here today to assist you, our viewers, and increase your power and energy, as well as self-sustainability by understanding the positive truths about your health while basing intuitive opinions on science. Now, we are not doing a patient today for mini reading, but you can watch any of my other shows. You'll see them on there. But we thought it was more important to discuss the situation with Alzheimer's. To me, it's an epidemic, and being a certified epidemiologist, I'm so sorry. I'm an epidemic now. Being a certified epidemiologist, I really feel it's an important topic today. So, and that's why I invited Nurse Peggy, because she's a hospice nurse, correct, Peggy?
That is my nursing specialty, yes.
Yeah.
And I
So
have the
I'm
holistic
sure
aspect of it also. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah.
Along with what I can offer you from my personal clinical experiences with patients, my husband also passed away 8 years ago this month, and he had a frontal temporal lobe dementia that nobody really realized until about 6 months before he died that that's what was going on, because he was only like 65, 66, so it was young for something like that to happen. Uh,
Mm.
but when you're referring to Alzheimer's, and that's kind of like back in the day. I remember my nana who lived with us when she couldn't take care of herself anymore. My parents always said that nana had hardening of the arteries, and some of the behaviors that we saw, and I thought it was pretty cool as a young teenager because nana would wake up in the middle of the night and ask for a cup of tea, and she thought I was one of her buddies that she worked with in Canada in the office, and I just played
Yeah.
along with it. Because I've learned over the years as a nurse, and of course I didn't know that at 12, but it's very upsetting and disruptive to try to reorient somebody who's struggling with memory issues.
Mhm.
I was in a facility once, and a 98-year-old lady was crying in the hallway and holding her baby doll. And I said, "What's wrong? Can I help you?" And she says, "I can't find my mommy." And I
Mm.
looked up, I was right below the sign at the nursing home for the hairdresser, and I said, "Oh, she's getting her hair done. Okay, thank you." And she went on happy way. If I had said, "Oh, your mom went to heaven 20 years ago," she would have been devastated for my entire shift.
Mhm.
Um, so there's a lot of different theories. Some people feel you should reorient somebody, that it does not slow the progression down. Um, with
Yeah, I you
yeah,
really knew what to say, though. That's amazing. I'm
uh,
not sure I would exactly know what to say unless we talked about this before.
Right. Well, I think probably my experience with my nana, but I had also learned at 12 that if I got up and spent 10 minutes making her a cup of tea and giving her a vanilla wafer, she was happy, she'd go back to bed. In the morning, my mother would always chastise me because I have need my sleep for school, and I should have woken her up, and she would have put her back to bed. And I'm not sure my mother even had the compassion and empathy that I had. Children sometimes are more in tune to what somebody needs. And we beat that out of kids, not beat literally, but we kids learn that you'd be so intuitive as you grow up, or at least share that you are. Uh, but she was happy to have her cup of tea, and okay, I'll see you on the way home or something, and it was fine with me.
Thank
What became a
goodness you were
problem,
there.
and my parents, and really I grew up in a generation where it was sort of expected, especially in certain ethnic uh, communities, that family took care of family. It's still very much in many communities now, but the reality is many people in this generation, and maybe even the past one, they're two income families. And you're not working
Mhm.
two incomes just so you can support a handicapped, a disabled family member. You're working two incomes to meet your bills. So it really becomes a strain, and very difficult for families to keep people at home in some situations. Uh,
Right,
I
right.
I also took care of my mother-in-law when she needed care. She was young, but she had all the complications of diabetes, but she was in a hospital bed, a bilateral amputee, and blind the last few years of her life. My oldest daughter was 7, and when she passed, I had said, "Honey, when mommy and daddy need help, are you gonna take care of us like we did mom?" And she said, "I certainly won't. I'm gonna have a good enough job that I can put you in a nursing home." "Thanks,
Oh my
kid."
goodness.
But what that taught me when I thought about it is I really wanted that to be an important formative experience for her, because
Yeah.
it was good for me, but I didn't understand the other dynamics going on in the family, the financial things.
Mhm,
But she saw it as it was a stressor because I was still working as a nurse. I had, I think, 4 kids under 5 then, so it was,
mhm.
but I thought it was important that the kids know their grandmother, and, but I realized with my home care patients, it's not right for everybody. With my
Right,
husband, as his dementia symptoms got worse to the point where I still had to work to pay our bills, but he couldn't be left to home safely. um, I had to put him in a facility for the hospice part of his, chapter of life, and it gave me a chance. I felt a little guilty in the beginning, but I realized it was the only way I was gonna get quality time, because the caregivers so often don't take care of themselves, and that's one of the most important keys in dealing with Alzheimer patients, whether you're have them in a facility or at home with you, especially if home. You're so burned out, you still love them very much, but you feel guilty that you're so burned out. Um,
right,
and you just don't take care of yourself, and nobody's, the patient or you just, it's not a good situation. A lot of resentment and anger comes out, and it's, it's not quality of life that you think you're trying to achieve. Where if you have somebody in a facility or a place where his needs are being met and you can visit as frequently as you want and be there, it's quality time. And that's when you get to share the love. And um, so when I put my husband in a facility that was nearby, I signed up for some agency shifts so I could be there. My idea was I'll work there, and of course I'll see him every day when I'm working. I had less
Mhm.
time to see him than if I had him at home,
No.
because nurses don't get many breaks, and they're short staffed and all that. But one of the most difficult things for me was if I was at work at his facility wearing scrubs, like looking like a nurse, he didn't recognize me.
Oh,
Uh,
goodness.
until I was there maybe talking for 10 or 15 minutes. "Oh, Peggy, it's
Right.
you."
Yeah.
And that's very upsetting to family members. It's one of the worst parts for family members.
There's so
Um,
many things to think about,
but
but
one of
we
the
have
comfort
options, so
yeah, you do it, and one of the comfort in that situation, though, I learned to be grateful that he didn't understand how sick he was. In the
right.
process of getting to the dementia diagnosis, and in his case, it was a frontal temporal lobe dementia that was actually caused by stopping vitamins after bariatric surgery a couple years earlier.
Mm,
So
right,
sometimes it's genetic component, and a lot of times it's your diet and
right.
environment.
And
Um,
that's what we're gonna mention
yeah,
now, though,
yeah.
what actually happens and why what is it caused from. So Alzheimer's can arise from a blend
Mhm.
of genetic, like she was saying, it can be genetic, lifestyle and environmental factors also contribute, and age is the strongest risk. But other things can include cardiovascular disease, head injuries, poor sleep, chronic stress, nutritional
Mhm.
deficiencies, of which her husband most likely had, stopping the vitamins. Yet hope remains. Every mindful breath, every healthy meal, every quiet walk in nature, these are small acts of prevention, gentle reminders to the body and the brain to thrive. Um, it can be various things. There's so many things that can cause it. We are going to actually do a slideshow today in our second section after the commercial break. And that shows the lung heart brain correlation that can lead to Alzheimer's. And this next segment is going to be so important. Anybody who has Alzheimer's in the family, or maybe you're concerned about yourself, you need to hear this. It's the scientific portion of our show based on research, and you want to hear it. We are going to take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to see that slideshow when we first come back. We'll be right back.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, Hope, and Support for Caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. We are going to look at a slideshow, a very important slideshow. It takes the science of Alzheimer's disease, and you can see the connection between the lungs, the heart, and the brain. So let's watch these slides, and you'll appreciate them, I'm sure. So lung, heart, brain connection. All right. And next slide, please. So we have chronic lung disease, hypoxia, and inflammation, but then it also affects cardiovascular strain and circulation, vascular damage, impaired brain oxygen, and there's things that it does that people need to realize, and it's very important to understand that. So let's explore the heart-brain connection and any of these bodily systems that can trigger the Alzheimer's diagnosis. So next slide, please. There we no, go back one. I'm so sorry. I didn't see. So we want slide 4, please. And so basically the bottom line here is protecting your brain and your heartbeat protects your mind. So we want to definitely do that. Next slide, please. The biology behind the connection, as we continue on the slides, keep these 4 simplistic points in mind. Low oxygen, known as hypoxia, triggers inflammation and oxidative stress. Inflammation damages blood vessels, impairing brain perfusion. Cardiovascular disease increases amyloid and tau buildup. Combined, these accelerate cognitive decline and the Alzheimer risk. Next slide, please. The lung-brain connection. If the lungs are not functioning properly, like COPD or cancer or just simply extreme stress with exhaustion, the brain may not be getting enough oxygen. This could result in a situation called hypoxia. So what is hypoxia? Hypoxia are low oxygen levels in the blood or tissues. Cells cannot produce enough energy through normal metabolism, leading to tissue stress, inflammation or swelling, and even cellular damage, including the brain. Next slide, please. The heart-brain connection works in both directions. Keep that in mind. Here you can see from the top down where the brain controls the heart rhythm. You have brain damage, say from an accident, or extreme hypoxia or Alzheimer's disease. It's going to affect the heart. It's going to change the rhythm. It could change the rhythm. It could, have other effects on the heart as well. It's all connected. Every organ in your body is connected. And these are a very important connection. Next slide, please. Research increasingly shows that what damages the heart can also injure the brain. Conditions such as atrial fibrillation, heart failure, and hypertension reduce oxygen delivery and alter the brain's vascular network, accelerating the same changes seen in Alzheimer's disease. By caring for your heart, we also nourish the brain, protect memory, and preserve the very rhythm of life itself. Next slide, please. Once again, hypoxia is low oxygen levels in the blood or tissue. This can lead to low cellular oxygen levels, reducing cognitive capabilities and causing brain damage. You can see the different brains there, and they get worse and worse. There's a strong expanding scientific evidence linking hypoxia to the development and progression of Alzheimer's disease. According to Zhang and et al. 2019 study named Butterfield and Helluel 2019, chronic hypoxia reduces oxygen delivery to neurons, leading to oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction, and increased amyloid beta production via upregulation of beta and other areas, impaired alpha beta or A beta clearance across the blood-brain barrier. the toe hyperphosphorylation, promoting tangled formations, very commonly seen in Alzheimer's disease, and neuroinflammation and vascular injury due to the neuroinflammation. It also mimics Alzheimer's disease pathology. Next slide, please. This damage can lead to dementia and Alzheimer's. Unfortunately, if you have Alzheimer's disease gene, this disease can be triggered and ultimately diagnosed as Alzheimer's disease. However, you can get Alzheimer's even without the disease in your genes. It can be triggered by any of these possibilities that we're mentioning here today. If you have hypoxia, let your doctor know. Keep in mind that you should test your blood oxygen levels regularly if it comes up below 95 on a regular basis. And by the way, stay healthy. Get some exercise, move around. The more you move around, it really helps cells live longer. So any various conditions can bring on hypoxia and increase brain damage, such as sleep apnea, chronic lung disease, higher risk of cognitive decline, and Alzheimer biomarkers. OSA patients show greater amyloid beta deposition and reduced hippocampal volume on PET and MRI scans, and that's according to Shi et al. 2018 and Chen et al. 2021. These studies have been done over and over again. They've proven this. COPD and low oxygen saturation correlate with the accelerated cognitive decline and higher dementia risks. According to Wang in 2022, midlife hypoxia and reduced lung function are linked to increased later life dementia, which also has similar beginning signs of Alzheimer's. Animal and cell studies also have shown this. In 2007, again, 2006, by another company before. It goes on and on and on. It just keeps on going. Next slide, please. Practical steps for prevention. Here it is. This is basically, you're going to try and support the lung, heart, and brain health, all three, so that you don't trigger the Alzheimer effect in your brain. First, prioritize breathing exercises and daily movement. Very important. Manage blood pressure, rhythm, and cholesterol. Treat sleep apnea. If you have it treated. Avoid chronic smoking exposure too, because that there can lead to hypoxia, which can lead to dementia and ultimately could lead to Alzheimer's disease. The fat in your diet, stick to a Mediterranean diet, rich in greens, berries, olive oil, that type of situation. You want to eat healthy. Okay, and you can have fats. You need fats because your brain, even according to Dr. Broderick, whom we had on the show, your brain is made of fat. You have to have fats, but you need to try and eat basically healthy fats. Next slide, please. When we honor the breath and nurture the heart, we protect the mind, the sacred vessel of memory. And that is our slideshow for today. So let me continue on here. So, that Mediterranean diet, that seems to be wonderful. And there's some other things we can do holistically. Mind-body practices such as meditation, therapy, yoga. We can help to restore the clarity and inner peace. Unprocessed grief can cloud the mind, but music, prayer, art, and there are other pathways of love to reopen your memory connection. So this connection is the truest medicine of all. Even when words are gone, presence remain, and love continues to speak to you. To the caregivers, of which Peggy already touched base on, I love that. And this will probably add a little to it, which is nice, to those caring of loved ones with Alzheimer's. You are the quiet heroes walking between worlds. Your patience and tenderness form a sacred bridge between this life and the next. But remember, you must also care for yourself. You have those options that Nurse Peggy has mentioned. Please, keep those in mind. See if you can get respite, church, talk to Salvation Army, talk to different groups. Try to get some respite. I had my godfather here for 6 months in hospice in pain and dying. And I never could get one person to help me until the day before he died. And it's sad, but you go through torment and you go through it with them. It's not an easy task. You are the living heroes, though, the people that do this. Rest whenever you can. Allow others to help if you can get the help. Your own healing energy keeps the circle of love alive, because healing flows through you only when your own cup is full, or even partially full. You know,
One point that
there's
I
so
would like
much.
to make, excuse me,
Go ahead.
hydrate. I want to stick my 2 cents in for hydration. Hydration is important for both the caregiver and the dementia patient. One of the comorbidities that happens as somebody declines and now they're incontinent, getting, diaper changes, whatever, they're prone to more urinary tract infections. And urinary
Yeah,
tract infections in the elderly, it's going to happen. It happens with my dogs that wear diapers, but uh, it happens, and the symptoms mimic signs of a stroke. Then you think you don't know what's going on. I believe, with my experience with my husband and other family members, that it's actually, as long as your family member is safe and the needs are met, it's more important to take care of you first, uh, because they're safe, and it's an awful feeling when he doesn't even know who you are, and it's really hard to do. For some people, harder than others. I'm in the profession, so I understand the process. But as a patient becomes nonverbal, which is also part of the progression at the very end, um, and even to the point, like, I was on my way to the facility when I knew that things had changed and he was imminent. His oldest son was already there, and he said, "The staff just came in. They're changing him. Told me I have to wait in the hall. What's going on?" Staff had already called me, and I said, Stay with your father and keep talking to him. He can hear you." And I tell all the hospice families, no matter why you're on hospice, hearing truly is, we know from research, the last hearing and even smell and touch are the last senses to go, even if they can't. Um, Express that. I know from experience they hear you and they feel you. And 2 of his sons were out in Ohio. Well, the one that I was with was in Pennsylvania with me, and I said, "Art, get your brothers on the phone, let them say goodbye." And there were actually physiological signs. He knew he was hearing from his sons. It made a difference. And he did pass shortly after that, and just a few seconds before I got there, but there was a sense of peace. You can tell when somebody passes and they're agitated right before they go, or, it's really death in a very positive way. As sad it is for those that are left behind, it's a wonderful gift from your higher power of the universe, because it's
right,
peaceful and the
right.
suffering's done.
Alzheimer's isn't just about memory, it's about connection, and whether it's smell, touch, hearing. Today we uncovered the science and spiritual connection, how the breath that sustains life also sustains memory. And don't go anywhere, though. We'll be right back with more on Alzheimer's disease, love beyond memory, right here on Medical Intuitive Insights. We'll be right back.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Master of words, powerful player. What life-changing words can Dr. Janet Smith Warfield pull out of her magical toolbox that just might mysteriously open a door you never knew was there? A door to free yourself from fear forever. Transform your rage into right action. Release your guilt. Position you into a life of freedom, purpose, passion, power, and peace. All quite suddenly, unexpectedly, and almost miraculously, with no effort on your part. Join Dr. Janet on Dancing with Words, Dancing with Wisdom, as she and her guests show you how words map our experiences, immersing you in a sound bath that relaxes your muscles, opens your mind, and supports you in co-creating your extraordinary life.
Welcome back to Medical Intuitive Insights. We're continuing our talk about Alzheimer's disease, the journey through love beyond memory. In this next segment, we'll be reflecting on spiritual aspect of the disease and some storytelling as well. So perhaps, could Alzheimer's be more than a disease? Could it be a sacred transformation of the spirit? You know, when I look into your eyes of somebody living with Alzheimer's, I see something profoundly beautiful, a soul untethered gently from time. Your memory fades, the soul remembers love. That love lives in every smile, every embrace, every whispered, I love you. And that is why today's episode carries the line, love beyond memory. You know, Peggy, you were discussing somebody on the break. Why don't we tell our viewers? Go right ahead.
Okay, there are several types of dementia that kind of are under the Alzheimer's umbrella, but one of the most moving experiences I had to go to an assisted living facility to pronounce and take care of the final needs of a woman in her 40s who passed. She had Lewy bodies dementia. Lewy bodies is kind of it's difficult for people to understand, especially when the doctors say, well, we can't be 100% sure unless we do an autopsy. But there's certain symptoms and behaviors and blood tests that show that more than likely this is what we're dealing with. And as this woman passed, she had her 25-year-old son, her only child, at her bedside, all alone. And I had said, do you have any family or a significant other, girlfriend, somebody to be with tonight? Because 1 year before, almost to the month, this young man had lost his father, the woman's husband, to the same disease. So what this young man had learned through medical testing at the hospital for himself, is that he carries the gene of supposedly Lewy bodies on both sides of the family. Mm-hmm. And when I asked about, his relationships, he said, how could I possibly have a girlfriend and think of a family, because this is going to be me in 10 years. And it just really hurt me. Yeah, I didn't have an answer for him, and I just strongly encouraged him to reach out to a close friend or, get some support, go to a grievers group and share when he's ready. But it opens up the medical research and, has shown that people that have Alzheimer diagnoses at younger ages, they have a shorter lifespan. Maybe typically an older person over 65, when they get dementia, it's usually vascular dementia, the old hardening of arteries that I mentioned back in another generation. You tend to live 8 to 10 or 12 years. When you get it younger, it's often only 2 to 6 years at the most. And, it's such a big tragedy. And another tragedy that I learned from personal experience, before I realized my husband had dementia, his behaviors changed. He was belligerent when he was such a kind, easygoing, gentle man, very spiritual, very, very in tune to people around him. And I didn't realize he was having some physiological problems. He was apparently having accidents in the bathroom. But he would take his soiled clothes and hide them in my drawers. And of course, I didn't have the nicest attitude about what the hell are you doing, And in a conversation like that, I looked into his eyes, and I have to tell you, it wasn't love that I saw. It was like I was looking at a complete stranger, and he was looking back at me like, "Do I know you?" And I actually said to him, "Art, do you know who I am?" And then a robotic-like voice came out of him that was not his normal tone, telling me my entire name, that I was married to his entire name, the day that we got married, where we've lived, where we're living now, all the details, demographic details. But it was like a robot spitting out, some memory chip that answered the questions if you're on Star Trek or something. And it was pretty frightening for me. And, at that point, I made an appointment at the hospital in the city that, works with neurological problems. And in the process of identifying things, we discovered he had tonsil cancer, which we had no clue going up to this. That would certainly lead to the circulation inflammation issues. Cancer usually is inflammation. But because we had identified the frontal temporal lobe dementia, that in his case has maybe a 2-year lifespan from diagnosis, uh, I chose not even to tell him that he had cancer, and just keep him comfortable. And he didn't suffer. We had already had the power of attorney and advance directives, and that's a brief thing I should say. If you have a family member that may be showing signs like that, it's never too early to make sure you're prepared no matter what could happen. I mean, I'm only 69. Before I had a simple surgery last year, my state lawyer said, "Oh, you need to get your living will done now and all your papers in order." I said, "It's a simple surgery. It's outpatient," But he was right, though. You never know,
Yeah,
and it's part of being prepared. He was
doesn't
the Boy
hurt.
Scout. I should say he
Right.
was the Boy Scout master too, so Boy Scouts are always prepared.
Doesn't hurt, and keep an extra copy by your front
You
door if
know,
somebody comes in an
um,
ambulance.
when I first got sick, I immediately, and he wasn't too far gone yet. When he first got sick, rather, I went to the bank, got a financial POA so I could pay the bills.
Mhm.
Never occurred to me that I needed a medical POA because I was married to him. I learned, very surprisingly, since I work in healthcare, I feel like I should have known that. There were doctors that questioned my authority to make decisions on his behalf because I didn't have a medical POA. So now, currently,
Mhm.
my oldest boy, who is in his middle 40s, thanks to the Scoutmaster, we have all that in place just in case I have a car accident or something sudden or unexpected. And it's really part of preparing for all stages of life and protecting your family. Um, because there is a time for everybody that somebody makes those decisions, and you want to make sure that they're making decisions that they would want.
According to what
Hosp-
they want, right.
because of I was hospice was my specialty, I brought hospice on early. Most people often don't call hospice until just a couple days before you call the undertaker. And it's really important to understand that hospice enhances the quality of life. If you're in a facility, you have extra eyes and hands taking care of you, reporting, assessing every day that maybe the staff nurse couldn't do. If you're at home, and you have the entire all discipline team helping you anyway, the social worker, the chaplain. It's non-denominational. It doesn't matter what your religious, spiritual background
Mhm.
is, but the support is there. And if we're able to come way before the crisis is happening, and the crisis when a person is getting ready to pass is not for the patient, it's the family. Um,
Right.
I've learned over the years attending many funerals and speaking at many of them. Every time we go to a funeral, it reminds of us every other funeral we've been to in our past. That's
Right.
the way, and that's a normal human phenomenon. Um, so if you know that you have a progressive, any kind of disease, not just Alzheimer's, that eventually hospice can be of benefit. Uh, you don't have to, you just theoretically have to have a diagnosis that could terminate your life within 6 months. My husband was on hospice 18 months, and I got wonderful care from the hospice team. I couldn't have done it without them.
Right.
Uh, and everybody, and there are caregivers groups. If you can't get out of your house because you're the 24/7 caregiver, there are online caregiver groups. They really are helpful, and it lets you know that you're not fighting this battle alone, and that alone
Mhm.
gives you energy. It
Yeah.
lets you know that there's a future for you, and you'll be okay when you lose your family member. These are all things we don't like to think about that, and I'm not real a good planner for the future. Nurses usually aren't, but that's part of taking care of yourself, really, making
Right.
sure
Right.
that you've done that. Um, the diet and stuff, like, so he got his problem, it became a result of not taking vitamins after bariatric surgery. People may not realize, and I talked to 20-year-olds that had that surgery, they already weren't taking their vitamins.
Oh,
I had a patient who was a high school teacher, and they were running her up for Lou Gehrig's and Lyme and all kinds of
mm,
neurological diseases. And as I was doing the history and asking for her medication list, I always asked, "Do you take any vitamins over the counter?" She said, "Why would I take vitamins now? I had the surgery 20 years ago." I said,
mm,
"Bariatric surgery?" And she said, "Yes." And I knew right away what the issue was. I referred her
right.
to a neurologist in the area that I knew had a holistic approach without me even giving him any information. Part of his history, he identified it was the vitamin problem. Her case, it was early enough that he was able to reverse it.
Well,
Um,
that's a
you know,
blessing.
there are a lot of by mouth medications we've been giving patients for years that, hope to slow the progression. I can't say I've seen any drastic things, but if it helps
Mhm.
slow some of the symptoms, make life easier for them and you, there's certainly a good idea. There's a lot of cutting edge research, and I actually participated in some, not with my own family, but as an infusion nurse, I administered some new IV medications that directly attack the part of the brain and try to supplement and support what's missing. And they're showing very good results. And I know most of the major cities are offering that now, but you can look online for IV solutions for that and
Yeah,
talk to your
it's like
doctor.
medications beyond Aricept. There's so many more
Right.
now.
There
So,
is, and most
yeah.
of them you can't pronounce. I think if they have a name you can't pronounce or spell, they get to charge more for it. But,
Yeah.
it's
But
always
hospice can
important.
help with that. That's the 2 things I found with hospice was, A, people are like, "Oh, I don't want them to let me die." And I'm like, "No, you can have palliative care," you know? That means you get your antibiotics, you see the doctor, there's hospice where you can still do all those things. They still treat you. And then, of course, there's the Medicare situation with costs. If you are in hospice, it covers much more of the cost than if you're not in hospice. And that I thought was shocking, like with my
Well,
pops.
think
And I've been
about it.
talking
They're
to my
they're
mom
betting
about it.
they're betting that you're not going to live long enough to raise the bills that you get if you're not on hospice. But
Right,
I also,
right,
that brings up another point though. When I sign somebody up on hospice, people don't realize it doesn't have to be a permanent decision. Maybe
right.
you're going
There's
through a
that
rough
last
time.
one.
You
Perfect
always have
point.
you have you have an opportunity to either switch to another hospice company if you're just not gelling with the ones you're working with, or actually if you find that there's a late treatment, you can stop hospice and get your treatment that you want. And I'll let you take over from here.
Right. No, I think that's actually perfect. It is good that we get those things out of there. It's not a permanent decision. You can change your mind. You can get off of hospice and then go on it later if you need it. We knew somebody on hospice for 5 years because of the costs, and he actually had better care when he was on hospice, and then he came off. But we thought it was worse off. Either way, we are going to take another commercial break. You're watching Medical Intuitive Insights. I'm your host, Dr. Gloria Warren. We're here with Nurse Peggy, and the topic today is Alzheimer's. So we'll be right back. We have a very nice ending for you.
Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorick, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorick has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk.
Welcome back to Medical Intuitive Insights. We're here with Nurse Peggy, and we're discussing Alzheimer's disease, and we went through the scientific discovery of it and what it means to have Alzheimer's. The reason why I did this show today is I went to see a friend a couple days ago, and I was so saddened. His relative was, let's call him Bob. Okay. His relative was like, oh, he has Alzheimer's. I was like, oh, I already knew that he was diagnosed with it. And he had come to my house a few months ago, and I looked at him, I said, no, your chest is blue. I need to take your oxygen level. And I checked it, it was 92. I said, Bob, your oxygen is so low. You need oxygen. You need to do some deep breathing exercises. You need to see your doctor, get a lung x-ray. You need to see him and talk to him about oxygen or what he can do for you, because the lung and brain are so connected, as well as the heart and brain, and the heart and the lungs and the lungs and the heart. I mean, it's all connected. And he left, and of course he forgot. And his relative was very insistent. No, it's Alzheimer's. I said, yes, but I believe it's brought on by hypoxia. And then she started telling me, yeah, but it's in his genes. I said, I know, I understand that, but it could have been triggered by, genes don't fail for no reason. I mean, that's a fact. They don't just fail. Genes, if they're in the certain environment that can cause failure, they'll fail. And if you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain, you could get Alzheimer's, you can get dementia, you can get other problems as well. There's other cancers that can be started and that type of thing. You need to protect your lungs. You need to do deep breathing exercises. Everybody should do a few a day, just 3 long breaths, holding it in for the count of 4, and then exhale on the count of 6. Make it a different number. That way it's easier to do, believe it or not. But you have to take care of your lungs, and you have to take care of your heart, and it's through diet and release, spiritual release, and you can get into chakras and everything just to release, to remove the stress, less inflammation in your body, less swelling in the brain. You cannot live without a healthy brain. It just doesn't work that way. You need healthy brain, healthy heart, healthy lungs. Work on it, stay healthy. So let us take a gentle breath together. Divine Creator, we lift our hearts in compassion for all souls touched by memory loss. May peace comfort the minds that wander, and may strength embrace the hearts that remain present. Let love guide every word, every touch, and every moment shared. For love is the thread that never breaks, the eternal memory of the soul. Amen. So I just wanted to add to, sometimes in progressed Alzheimer's disease, people may not act like themselves. They may get angry. They may be robotic, like Peggy's husband, became. If they start screaming, throwing things, you need to realize that's not their mind, and their soul isn't doing this. This is from another dimension. This is something outside of their own physical and spiritual being, and what you know them to be themselves. This is beyond that. And you just need to overlook those things. Don't be heartless or whatever. Give them love. Give them comfort. give them guidance, holistic insights, and soul level healing. This is so important to keep in mind. It's very difficult for some of us, even myself sometimes. See, my mother's going through all of this, and she all of a sudden starts screaming at me. And I need to step aside sometimes to gather my thoughts. And I need then to think, this is not her. This is just the disease. And I need to just ignore that and give her her love and her guidance, and help her with her physical self as well, and do the things that she needs in this level of her life. So we're
If I
open,
could
by
add
the way.
something real quickly, one of the
Mhm.
most important things the caregiver needs to keep in mind is safety. In the
Right.
early stages, I knew something wasn't right, but he was young. I didn't expect dementia, and I'd leave his lunch when I went to work. I'd leave his meds out. I'd come home, and Art, you didn't eat lunch. Oh, okay. And one day I was in a hit and run car accident. Art, I had a car accident today. Oh, okay. And I
Mhm.
realized that was his go. That was the phrase. Everything was okay. And
Right.
he would have said, "Are you hurt? Is the car okay?" No, everything's, "Oh, okay." "Our dog's not wearing a diaper." "Oh, okay." So those are signs that aren't exactly right, but safety falls, and I had to actually say after the 3rd day he didn't eat when I wasn't home, I would be telling my patients' families, "You can't leave them home alone," and here I am going to work. I had to get a caregiver
Right.
until I made
You
a
had to do
decision,
what you had to do.
so,
Sometimes you have to
uh,
juggle.
but safety
Peggy?
is your most important thing in keeping
Definitely.
yourself healthy because you're the one that's
Right.
gonna have a bigger struggle than the patient.
Safety and your own health as your the hero. Nurse Peggy, can you please tell our audience how they can get a hold of you?
Sure, I have a show every Thursday, this same network at 1 p.m. Tomorrow's show will be a practitioner of an energy medicine technique, IEMT, Matthew Kendall. Um, and each week I just either offer education on holistic modalities or patient advocacy since I have 45 years as a nurse. My
So,
YouTube
yeah,
channel is The Holistic Nurse with Peggy Smith. So thank you for
thank
joining
you.
us. Thanks for
So,
having me.
yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. We're opening our hearts and airwaves to a select few courageous souls ready to receive free online guidance. If you want a flash mini read on the show, text 715-892-7500. It is free. Please text. I'm ready for full medical intuitive readings, full ones, 2 to 3 hours long, by the way. Once again, 715-892-7500. December's Life to Connect retreat. If you'd like to go in the beautiful Mayan Riviera, it's youth regeneration, scientific things you have never even heard of. Most doctors don't even know about it. So text again, once again, 715-892-7500. Thank you for joining me today on Medical Intuitive Insights. If this message touched your heart, please share it to somebody walking this path. Remember, even when memory fades, love endures. Until next time, there for the grace of God go I. I am Dr. Gloria C. Warren, right here. See you soon.
This has been Medical Intuitive Insights with host Dr. Gloria Warren. Tune in each week as Gloria shares over 40 years of experience and yearns to provide knowledge derived from intuition and research. Wednesdays, 2 p.m. Eastern.